Can we declare like a moratorium on set visit type articles? I personally am getting very, very tired of them, and there's just like a whole raft of them that came out today now that the embargo lifted on Infinity War set visit stories, and my timeline is just like flooded with them. I don't see the value in what a bunch of random film journalists noticed when they were allowed on the set for a day.
But that's part of like the whole Marvel machine, don't you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like, you know, if they bring like 30 or 40 journalists and stick them in a tent on a very preordained type of day when they're guaranteed to like see some cool stuff being shot, it'll generate a lot of positive press coverage. Like intellectually, I totally understand why Marvel would be okay with it, but like,
well, there you go.
Yeah, but I just don't like, in terms of what it contributes to the conversation, I don't know why all these different reporters do one for every major blockbuster.
FOMO, man. If one site has that scoop and you don't, you're fucked.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, like, it's always the same take. It's like, we had Chris Evans come over and he walked up and said a couple of words to me, and that was cool. And then I got to sit in the chair that they used as the pilot seat for the Guardians ship and blah, blah, blah.
People eat this shit up all the time, Rob. Like, you shouldn't be surprised this happens.
I don't know.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. Although, I have to say, like, what timeline are you on? Because I don't see any of this stuff.
Maybe your feed is more evenly balanced with, like, other stuff, and I've got far too many, like, film Twitter alumni in my feed.
Not just film Twitter, but Marvel Twitter.
I don't know, though, because, like, you know, I'm following, like, probably 20 or 30 film journalists by this point. You know, some of them are like pro critics who just write reviews, and other ones are like also sort of pop culture types who do these types of set visit things. And they're all like retweeting each other's stories or liking each other's stories, so that kind of amplifies it a bit. But it just felt like today, like you could almost feel the embargo lifting, and everyone posted their first impressions of like, oh, it was cool to be on the set, and then we were in Wakanda, and then I sat in the chair, and blah, blah, blah.
You need to stop following such lame film journalists then.
Yeah, apparently I just have to be to do like a cull of my Twitter following or something. And
yes, yeah. I think you should. I cull my feed once in a while. Sometimes I'll be like, why did I follow you in the first place again? Like,
yeah, it's probably like a follow for follow back type of situation.
No, I think like sometimes I'll follow someone because they tweeted something interesting, but then I'll be like, wow, that was like 1 in 1,000.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes I'll just feel bad because like I'll get followed by somebody who initially seems like they might offer some interesting content, and it's clear that they're like trying to build an audience. So like, I want to be nice and follow them back, even though I'm not super interested in what they're tweeting. And then I'll just forget that they're there, and it'll pollute my feed a bit.
Do you ever get burned or feel sad when you follow someone that you've met in real life or you're acquainted with and they don't follow you back?
I don't think that's happened. I mean, I don't follow.
Damn. That means people don't like me then.
I don't know. Maybe you introduce yourself to a lot more people than I do. Maybe I'm very selective with.
That's a no. I don't talk to people.
You know, obviously this business with set visits isn't going to change anytime soon, but it was something that got on my nerves today, so I figured I'd share it.
This is why our generation is like all depressed and stuff, because we don't have enough likes or followers.
Yeah, like we're like constantly chasing that endorphin rush of like, oh my god, I got 10 likes on that tweet. Like,
10 likes, you pleb.
Oh yeah, well you with your minute by minute hockey coverage, I'm sure that gets quite a decent audience.
No, it doesn't.
No.
No, I don't do minute by minute. I hate people who tweet minute by minute. It kind of gets on my nerves.
But don't you like, I mean, you're offering commentary on games like roughly when they happen though.
Not really. I can't do both at once.
Oh, okay.
I feel like if you're tweeting during a game, you're not paying attention to the game. I think there's too much going on for you to tweet at the same time.
Well, you know, that reminds me actually, because I think I sent you a photo once of like one of the desks used by the editors of Deadspin or something, and the guy had like 6 screens and like 3 keyboards, and he had multiple games running on several of the TVs, and then he was live tweeting on another screen or something, and you texted back something like just vomit emoji or something.
Probably. I don't know how people can do that. I'm amazed.
On that note, let's start the show. Welcome back to the Extra Buttery Podcast. This time on the show, we've got discussion of a couple of brand new movies for you, starting with Wrinkle in Time, followed by a movie by a brand new filmmaker. It's called Thoroughbreds, so we'll be getting into that. We'll also touch on the early buzz coming out of the new Steven Spielberg movie Ready Player One, based on the novel by Ernest Cline. And we'll be touching on a few other little news items here and there as the discussion continues. But coming to you from Toronto, my name is Robert Snow, and joining me from Vancouver is my co-host Jason Chen. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Other than that frustration I mentioned in the cold open over these set visit things.
It's only going to get worse, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the machine now, I guess.
So does this kind of make you less interested in Infinity War? Does it turn you off a little bit?
I don't know. I mean, like, I think I read one of the articles out of, like, Morbid Fascination, and it didn't really present me with anything I didn't already know from the trailer. Like, you know, they're basically just confirming stuff that we've seen, you know, the presence of characters, the rough outline of some of the conflicts. But I guess for people who, for the kinds of people out there, the Marvel fans who get really amped up about, like, mid-credit scenes, post-credit scenes, they're really into the mythology. These kind of articles really matter to them, but, you know, they want to know everything about the movie before they even see it.
It's about the clicks, man. Gotta get those clicks.
But yeah, for me, like, I'm just not, you know, I mean, obviously I'm going to see Infinity War out of whatever motivates me to see these team up movies now. It's not gonna draw my interest the way, like, some of these recent solo efforts like Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther have.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a second part to Infinity War? Is there another Avengers movie after this? There is, isn't there?
Yeah. They're doing one in like 2019 or something that's going to close off whatever cliffhanger I'm sure is going to be at the end of this first Infinity
Which is probably
War.
Captain America dying.
Something like that, yeah. It'll be the death of some major character. I mean, if they follow the comics, then yeah, it would be Captain America. But they've also suggested that maybe it could be Tony Stark because, you know, people are trying to parse out like what Robert Downey Jr.'s contract might mean for the future of the storyline and all that. But yeah, nobody's 100% sure. But just based on the way they've laid out their calendar of movie releases, there's going to be some sort of big shocker moment and. Which kind of just like, you know, it goes a lot further towards what a few writers have been saying is like, we're no longer watching a series of movies. We're watching like a giant TV show. Yes,
I agree. Not that there's anything wrong with TV shows. I think TV is a great medium.
No. But it's notable in the sense that like, other than Star Wars, there aren't very many movies going out there now that are so big, so expensive, and so serialized in their storytelling. Like, you know, we're getting closer and closer to the point where you can't really go into one of these blind.
Well, that's only because X-Men screwed up their timeline and Fantastic Four was a flop. I think studios have tried. Marvel's just done it better than anyone else.
Yeah, I guess. Like when you think about the Universal's Dark Universe attempt where they tried to like do The Mummy and make that the first film in a series, and then it all kind of collapsed after that.
Yeah.
And there've been other examples, of course, too. Yeah, I mean, Marvel and Star Wars are the only ones that are really doing it super successfully now. But it's I can't remember who it was. I think there's a video essayist that I've been catching up on recently, Patrick Willems, and he did something recently where he was kind of talking about how Marvel and Star Wars are sort of changing large format, like big screen storytelling in a way. They're doing things with this super serialized format that, you know, it's hard to tell whether it's going to change all the other movies around them. Probably not. It's kind of establishing itself as almost a different medium, which is kind of interesting. But maybe we'll just jump from there right into something else Disney related, Wrinkle in Time, which you saw over the weekend.
Yes. I did.
So, I mean, I think we maybe touched on The Buzz a little bit. I can't remember if it was in the show or not, but the word coming out of it that I heard was that Ava DuVernay, who directed this, she made a really great documentary, 13th, and another excellent biopic, Selma, about Martin Luther King Jr. She's kind of jumping into the big blockbuster Disney filmmaking game here with this movie, but what it sounds like is that she got the visuals right, but the storytelling side of it wasn't all that great. I don't know. What did you think?
Where do I start? Okay, I really like the book. It has been I think 20 years, 15 years maybe since I last read it.
Oh, you actually read the book? Because I haven't.
Yeah, I loved the book when I was a kid.
Because I didn't read it, and I don't know how I missed it. Maybe I was I don't know, maybe another book series took its place or something, but
it's the only one worth reading, though. The others I never read. Like A Swiftly Tilting Planet, I never read.
Oh, okay. But yeah, for whatever reason, I missed the book, so I've only come across a few people in my circles of friends who are familiar with it. I think it's basically just you and maybe Robin, our friend Robin.
Yeah, actually, I think I tweeted to Robin about it. I was like, based on this trailer, this movie looks terrible.
Yeah, okay.
And she's like, well, you should be more positive, Jason. I was like, no. But okay, so the book, if I remember, really was rather morbid and terrifying as a kid. I was one of those people who felt it was very hard to adapt into a movie. And the movie visuals are quite striking in that it's very colorful. There's obviously a lot of production value. But the three witches, so that's Oprah Winfrey, Reese Witherspoon, and Mindy Kaling, they weren't what I had imagined in my head as the three witches.
Yeah, they're what, Mrs. Who, Mrs. Witch, and Miss... Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think visually, it wasn't as dark as I expected. Because the first line in the movie is... the basic cliche was a dark and stormy night. And it kind of starts off that way in the movie. But it all of a sudden starts getting really bright and colorful. It's very obvious from the get-go that this was a kid's movie. So there are certain things that I think were too shallow almost. I didn't feel the characters were very deep. I didn't think the story was very well explored. I thought the execution was okay. There's a story in there about there's a coming of age story in there that I didn't think really fit. There's a school bully in the movie that I don't remember being in the book, and really ultimately I think could have been cut from the entire film. I don't want to hate on child actors, but the kid who plays Charles Wallace is the kid genius in the book, and he's kind of depicted as this weird, odd, but obviously a genius type kid. And the kid in the movie is more adorable than
precocious or something.
Precocious.
Yeah. And
he's not even precocious in the novel. He's just kind of he's almost telepathic in the book. There's this part where they talk about how he and his sister can communicate with just basically their minds. He knows what she's doing all the time and what she's thinking. That being said, Storm Reed, who plays Meg Murray in the film, I thought she was by far the best part of the film. I thought she was really, really good. But overall, Zach Galifianakis and Michael Pena, I thought were underused. Visually, it's very exciting, but story-wise, I thought it was really boring. I mean, there wasn't much going on for it, and there were parts of the book that were clearly cut from the film. For example, there's a set of twins in the book. There's 4 Murray kids, Meg, Charles Wallace, and the twins are cut in the movie. And not that they play a big role in the book, but obviously there were changes made that I didn't feel were quite necessary. It felt like a paint-by-numbers kids movie. I honestly feel that this movie would have been better had it more of a darker Harry Potter sort of tone, especially the later Harry Potter films. Because I think the movie deals a lot with hatred and death and obviously love that I think were quite complicated concepts in the book. But in the film, they kind of dumbed it down.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, the trailer that I saw kind of conveyed a little bit of that. I mean, it made it seem like there was some sort of existential battle between like an ultimate evil force and an ultimate light force or something. And, and there's also the issue of like the abandonment that the main character feels because she's essentially going off on this adventure to rescue her father, played by Chris Pine, because he's disappeared following some sort of scientific experiment.
Where are we?
We heard a cry out in the universe.
My father's alive.
We believe he is, and we're here to help you find him. We are in search of warriors.
Warriors who serve the good and the light in the universe.
So Madeleine L'Engle, who wrote the book, is huge on Christianity and all these like religious symbols.
Okay.
And it didn't hit me over the head, kind of like Zack Snyder did with Superman, thank God. But I think for a large part, they really ignored that aspect of the book. And I can't really help but think that Reese Witherspoon was like horribly miscast. She plays kind of like the quirky, kind of weird, odd witch of the three. But nothing Reese Witherspoon ever did came off as really quirky and odd. Like, she had the odd turn in Legally Blonde, but she played more of like a valley girl in that movie.
Yeah, she hasn't really been known for taking like quirky roles.
No, she's not that funny.
Yeah, she tends to. Well, I mean, she's definitely done comedy, but it's always been in a leading lady sort of way.
Yeah, and so I was kind of curious what led to them casting her. I read this Time article, I think it was Time, where Ava DuVernay was saying she wanted to cast icons in the roles of the three witches. And I can't help but think that anytime you sacrifice acting ability and fit for like the biggest symbols in feminism today, I guess, kind of takes away from the movie, because now you're just almost preaching. You're not really looking for a performance first.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit too meta or something.
Yeah, and not that A Wrinkle in Time isn't cultural significant. It is, because it's Ava DuVernay and it's done pretty well in the box office so far. But as a film, I think it really suffers for it. And the film itself isn't very strong either. And I gave it 2 out of 5, 2.5 maybe, because it's a competent kids movie, but it could have been so much more. And I felt really, really disappointed that it didn't go as deep as into books. I don't think the ideas were as well fleshed out. And the colors were almost Avatar-like. I really felt like it didn't have a specific look to it. Oprah Winfrey, if you see from the production photo, she has like this jeweled brow that she has.
Oh, yeah.
That I think just gets more ridiculous as the film goes on. And maybe it's just not what I had imagined, so that's why I didn't like it as much. It is very well done. They obviously put a lot of care into it. But I didn't really get it. And the other thing is too, the villains, they weren't fleshed out. Mind you, in the book they're more intangible.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got from the trailer too. It didn't seem like there was a particular villain. Well, are like Galifianakis and Pena playing villain types?
More Pena than Galifianakis. The villain is called It, right? IT. So that's why for a long time I think the book was difficult to adapt. But I didn't feel a very strong good versus evil struggle.
But do you get the sense, even though it seems to be more catering towards the younger audience, is the film put together in a way that suggests Disney's aiming for a series with this one, or do they kind of tie things up at the end of it?
It feels like a one-off, even though the book actually ends on a cliffhanger.
Oh, okay.
Which I think maybe it should be, because the subsequent books, from what I heard, are just not nearly as good. I don't know if there's sequel in the works. I think based on the box office, maybe. But if there would be a sequel, I'm not interested in it. It's one of those films. It's kind of like Wonder Woman, how the film seems to have more cultural importance than objectively being a good film.
Yeah, so it's, more of the attention is going towards like the fact that there's a young female mixed race protagonist, and then there's a black woman as the director. So it's more of a meta thing than the actual like art of it. Yeah,
it's more that the director is black and the movie had like $100 million budget, which is like unheard of, like a black woman. So I mean, kudos to Ava DuVernay. I just don't think the film overall was that good.
Okay, well that's too bad. I mean, I'm sure she'll rebound and she'll find her way to another good project.
Maybe I'm just not Because A Wrinkle in Time was, I think, conceived and marketed as a children's book.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, I guess, to be a kid's movie. And maybe I'm just not the right demographic for it.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to. I'll have to check in with Robin because I knew she.
Yes, ask her.
Yeah, because we'll get the flip side. If she thinks you're being too negative, maybe she'll find the something to like about it. I don't know.
I don't think I'm being too negative. I think it's legitimately like an okay film. It's super forgettable.
Yeah, but you're definitely lining up with the critical consensus that I heard. So yeah, maybe it's just not. It didn't come together on this one. For my part, I think the day you were watching Wrinkle in Time, I was watching this new movie called Thoroughbreds.
And
it's actually pretty good. I didn't pay much attention to it when I first saw the trailer a few months ago. But someone I follow, one of the writers for IndieWire, David Ehrlich, he described it over the weekend as being one of the possibly best filmmaking debuts of the year so far. And that kind of caught my attention because I like to keep my eye out for new filmmaking talent wherever I can, and this director, Corey Finley, who is fairly young, he started out as I believe a playwright, and this is his first screenplay and directing credit. And he's essentially made a sort of a pitch black comedy / psychological thriller, although it doesn't really have a lot of like traditional thriller moments.
okay.
It's weird. It's kind of in a little subgenre of its own. But essentially the story revolves around a pair of wealthy high school age girls who both live in a exurb of Connecticut. And both of their families have been into riding since they were like really small, and they became friends, I guess, at a local riding club. One of the girls, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who most people will probably know from The Witch, and she was the female lead in M. Night Shyamalan's Split last year. She plays kind of like the straight arrow, nice girl type. And her friend is played by Olivia Cooke, who was in Bates Motel, the TV show that was kind of the prequel to Psycho. And indie film fans will probably remember her from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. She was really good in that. But Olivia Cooke plays a girl who is essentially a sociopath. Like the film opens with her staring at her horse, the one she's ridden from since she was a little girl, and she pulls a knife out of her bag. And then the movie cuts to black and to the title sequence. And you're like, what's happening? But essentially, the two girls have been apart for a while when the movie starts. And whatever it is that Olivia Cooke's character does to the horse is kind of like the inciting incident. And she's basically given some sort of diagnosis of extreme mental illness, and the friend, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, is kind of compelled by her parents to go and kind of make friends with this girl again and try to help her as a tutor. And this sets off this kind of dark and twisted kind of critique of wealthy people, whereby Olivia Cooke's character slowly corrupts Anya Taylor-Joy's character and makes her realize that maybe she's not nearly as happy as she thinks she is, and that maybe she's harboring some violent feelings towards her stepfather. And they start planning a murder, maybe. But it's done with like a kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, and the whole time you're not quite sure whether you should be like laughing or kind of creeped out.
You hate him. You despise him.
Honey, you can't go in looking like that.
I'm fine.
Let me just...
I'm not gonna have to stand here all day like a robot repeating myself. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
You ever think about just killing him?
How would you?
This is also the last film Anton Yelchin made, right?
Yes, that's right. So he pops up as like a low-level drug dealer, like a son of another wealthy family from the neighborhood who's kind of fallen from grace, and he just sells like party drugs to the wealthy kids who hang out in some of the mansions nearby. And he's kind of recruited to help the girls with their murder plot. But they end up kind of manipulating him, and he's kind of playing the patsy, essentially.
I see. Okay. Recommend? Yes? No?
Yes, yeah, I would recommend it. It's not like a mind-blowing, like, rush out and see it kind of thing, but if you happen to see a screening near you, or if it pops up on a streaming service in the near future, I'd definitely say, like, solid recommendation. And obviously, like, it's kind of cool to see movies like this just come from a new talent so fully formed and so confident. It's almost like you feel like this guy's been making movies his entire life. Also have to recommend it on the basis of the score, which is really weird. Long stretches of silence with these kind of like tribal jungle drums at weird points, and then kind of almost like Inuit style throat singing mixed in. So it really contributes this sense of unease, and you're just like the whole time you're like, I don't know, you get these shivers crawling up your back, which kind of, again, stops you from laughing out loud at some of the weirder moments.
It's not like morbid or anything, right?
No, it's not like they're not certainly not playing the violence for laughs.
Okay.
It's more like the dialogue is generating the humor, and the kind of the deadpan reactions from Olivia Cook's character. Yeah, it's a weird one. You can't fully call it a comedy, can't fully call it a thriller.
One of those new movies that's just kind of bending everything, huh?
Yeah, it's almost it's got a bit of a Get Out vibe. Although Get Out is definitely more mainstream. Like Get Out has like a more traditional score and a little bit more of a traditional structure, but it's kind of in that hard to classify status that Get Out had.
I see.
But jumping from that, maybe actually let's circle back around to the Mouse House again.
The House of Mouse.
Jon Favreau has been tapped to direct this landmark show for their upcoming streaming service, which doesn't have a name yet, but it's going to be a live-action Star Wars show.
It's a good choice because he's very good at world building.
Yes, it's true, and I mean he's a trusted name for them now. Like he's kind of one of their in-house creatives who can jump into any project and they can trust him with big budgets, so makes a lot of sense.
He did kick it off with Iron Man.
Exactly, yeah, but and they've given him like the Jungle Book, and is he doing the Lion King right now?
I think so.
Yeah, right. So yeah, he's working on this like another one of these cartoons turned into quasi live action adaptations with like a all-star cast. So he's definitely part of the team there. This was kind of like a matter of time, I think. Disney really needed some sort of big show that could anchor their streaming service on day one. Something like House of Cards was for Netflix when Netflix launched. That could be the must-watch show that will drive people to subscribe. Now, of course, we don't know anything about what period and the chronology this show is going to be set in. Is it going to be a prequel to the original trilogy? Is it going to be pushed more towards like the era that the movies are exploring with Rey and Kylo Ren and that kind of stuff? But I mean, I have to say, this would be the one thing that would get me to subscribe for yet another streaming service.
Oh, really? So you're really into this thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's something that George Lucas actually had talked about doing ages ago, and I remember this is before he sold Lucasfilm to Disney. He and Rick McCallum, who's one of his longtime producers, they once said that they would love to do a live-action TV show, and they couldn't at the time because they wanted it to have like movie-quality special effects, and it just wasn't feasible to do at a TV budget, which at the time would have probably come from like a network of some kind. But as we've seen, cable channels like HBO and of course Netflix, they're willing to drop like tens of millions of dollars on premium content of this kind. So it's a different landscape now. Do you think you may hold off and not subscribe right away, depending on how well this one does?
Yeah, you know what? As much as I hate on how Skywalker-centric the Star Wars movies are, I really don't have any real interest in the rest of the Star Wars universe.
No?
Not necessarily. Unless it has to do with Jedis and Sith, I really don't care about the rest.
What if they go like way, way back in eras well before the prequel trilogy, like when the Jedi and Sith were at the height of their power and all that?
Yeah, so anything with Jedi and Sith I'm super interested in, because I think that is the biggest and most interesting conflict within the Star Wars universe for me. But if you're talking about like the adventures of Boba Fett, who I think is like the most overrated character in Star Wars history.
I agree with you actually.
Or like Han Solo adventures, or like Lando Calrissian adventures, although it depends on how good Donald Glover is. I really don't have any huge interest in it. I'd almost rather watch something else. It was kind of like Star Trek. Like, I'm not necessarily interested in like a whole broader galaxy or universe. I like things that are more self-contained, where if you watch one movie that's kind of like you can
Yeah, one and done kind of thing.
Exactly, one and done.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, for me, I would say, yeah, I'm excited for this up until a point, and you like listed a couple of examples that where it would be a little bit cliche or a little bit too obvious for them to do those ideas. But yeah, if they go into some of the really weird parts of the Star Wars mythology that have up until now basically just been in like video games and comic books or novels, stuff like, you know, the era of the Knights of the Old Republic type of thing, like thousands of years before
that I'm interested in. Yes.
You know, because I don't know how far you've read into the expanded universe stuff, and, you know, not to endorse that stuff too much because it also gets really, really bad at points. But
yes.
There's like weird stuff to do with like planets ruled by the Sith and like huge battles where like thousands of Jedi and thousands of Sith are all fighting simultaneously, and like creepy dark side magic and all kinds of stuff. And it gets really, really weird and kind of almost not very Star Wars-y after a while.
Yeah, and the problem with that is sometimes they start getting really inconsistent.
Yeah.
Part of the reason The Last Jedi had its ridiculous moments is because whatever force powers are, it's not consistent. And it seems like if you know or the Force or know how to use it, there's like nothing in this world you can't do.
Yeah, well, there's like
floating through space.
Yeah, well, I mean, that wasn't too far. I mean, it looked silly, but it wasn't too far out of the realm of possibility because, like, you know, there was no gravity.
But they never set the rules of how the Force works.
Well, exactly, and that works both ways too, because there were people saying that those scenes were not Star Wars in like quotation marks because we'd never seen it before. But to your point, because we'd never seen it before, it was just as possible.
Yes. But the risk is running too far off the deep end with it.
But no, I think like generally speaking, there's a lot of great territory to explore with this show, and then just like from an industry perspective, I'm very interested to see what kind of impact a company the size of Disney can have on the streaming market by, especially in this, because they like, once this thing gets up and going, like assumingly they get the Star Wars show, they have a few other shows ready at launch. How much of Netflix's market share is going to be scraped away by this thing? Obviously they won't be making any more of the Marvel themed TV shows after a certain point for Netflix. And that's like a pretty big chunk of Netflix's premium content there. So, you know, it kind of rebalance things a little bit on an industry level too, which is kind of interesting.
And speaking of adaptations and whatnot, remakes and all these blockbusters, geek culture, Tomb Raider's out soon.
Yeah, and that's driving a conversation of its own. There's a few people.
I don't expect that to be good either.
Neither do I. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think we've been burned way too many times with video game adaptations.
Yes.
I mean, if there are a few people out there that they still seem to be kind of like crossing their fingers and hoping against hope that this will be an outlier, but I don't really believe it. I mean, there's even from the trailer you can kind of pick up on the moments that are going to be way too much like a video game to really sustain themselves as a movie. Like the shots of her ducking under these ridiculous tomb traps, like studded spike wheels and flame jets and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, I mean, it's fine to see that, but I mean, I could also just do that in a game.
Yes.
So yeah, that's always been like one of the core structural problems of these adaptations is like they very, very rarely offer anything that you can't get from the game experience.
Tomb Raider's tracking at 50% because it's already been released in Asia.
Oh, so it's got okay.
And Thoroughbreds is certified fresh at 86. So
there you
between
go.
those three, I guess we should tell people to watch Thoroughbreds. It seems like a far more interesting film anyway.
If you can find it, yeah. I mean, it's. I think Thoroughbreds is only playing in limited release, so unfortunately, it'll be a lot easier to see A Wrinkle in Time and Tomb Raider. Casting our attention a little bit further ahead, there's also Ready Player One coming up in a couple weeks' time.
Yes.
And this one seems to be driving the online conversation in a way I like, not to compare it to Black Panther, because it's unfortunately there's already been a few misguided people trying to argue that Ready Player One is the Black Panther for the geeks.
That makes no sense. What does that even mean?
It's a stunningly bad take. There's been a couple of tweets, people have been screen capping them and sharing them on Twitter of like, people trying to make this argument, and I mean, I don't even know where to start with it, but I'll just kind of let it sit there. That there are people who seem to think that geek culture has been somehow still oppressed all these many years of superhero movie dominance, and that, you know, there's like an equivalency between geek culture and black culture or something.
I don't get it.
It's just really stupid. But anyway, I mean, the early buzz for this one is tracking surprisingly positive, and there's a lot of people kind of triumphantly waving their geek flag, saying like, "Oh, see, I told you so." Like, the book was great, and you know, it's not just
the book was not great. I read the book; it's horrific.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in an early episode, actually.
Yes.
For me, I read the book. I think maybe I knew this movie was coming out, so I picked it up and I read it maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And I mean, I saw it for what it was pretty quickly. Like, it's basically just like a soundboard of references. And I think the nostalgic part of your brain, like the part of your brain that loves callbacks, it's probably better developed in some people than others. But it's kind of like popcorn. It kind of, you're like, oh, I know that. Oh, I know that one. Oh, I get that too. Oh, I feel so smart because I recognize all these call outs. That part of your brain goes into like hyperdrive, and it can be easy to kind of overlook some of the creepier or immature aspects of the thing. And I think you talked about this too. Like, were you looking at all about like the weirdness of the main romantic relationship at all? Between like Wade Watts and the girl that he's in love with?
No. I don't know much about the movie other than basic premise, but I do remember picking up the book, kind of flipping over a couple pages, and said, no, this isn't my kind of book.
Well, I mean, like, going back to our conversation about Skyfall, actually, I mean, like, there couldn't be something more anathema to what you look for in a movie than just a bunch of callbacks to pre-existing properties.
Yes. Okay. I don't think Skyfall was a bad movie, though. I just
remember that was one of the things that you pointed out that you
that I didn't like.
Yeah, you didn't respond to all the 50th anniversary shout outs in the same way that like I did. I responded
negatively. That's how we put it. Exactly. I did not respond in a positive fashion.
Right. For somehow, like, Ready Player One is built up like it's kind of. Maybe it's overreaching to kind of stick Ready Player One fans together with like the Gamergate dudes who like go after women for being interested in video games. Yeah. That might be a little bit of a noxious combo or comparison, but it does seem like they trade members every so often. Like you get these dudes who are so into geek culture, they don't consume anything outside of 80s movies. Or
don't we call these guys neckbeards or something like that?
Yeah, like, there's lots of unfriendly names for them, but yeah, like dudes like that who are just immersed in the stuff, and Ready Player One as a book was like crack to them, and now the movie comes along, and a lot of critics and a lot of people who were kind of thinking about the creepier vibes in the book probably guessed, oh, the movie's gonna struggle with this kind of stuff, but apparently it's a crowd pleaser, and like if you don't think too much about it, you can have a fun time. So then that's just kind of opening up the conversation again, people being like, no, it's really great, and I told you so, and I'm a fan of the book, and I always knew it was going to be great. And then all of these other people who are like, no, but you have to pay attention to how horrible he is towards women in the book and all this stuff, and it's it's getting really loud and angry in a way that I didn't expect.
Fair enough. Well, I don't know. You'll have to go see it and then convince me to play or see. You see what you did there? Ready Player One. Made me want to start playing 80s video games again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for me after the way the book has been described in pop culture the past little while to kind of go in clean on this one. I think I'm going to be looking at it with a pretty pretty hard eye, essentially, about, especially like, you know, because the main character pursues this female character, and he doesn't seem to respect her as a, you know, he doesn't seem to recognize that she has any kind of agency, or that she has a right to turn him down if she's not interested in him, or have a mind of her own, essentially. And while I can sort of see how Spielberg might fix that in the movie version, it's going to be one of the more difficult parts of the book to get over, I think.
Has Spielberg ever made a movie with a strong female character as the lead?
I mean, you can make the argument that Meryl Streep's character in The Post was pretty strong.
Ah, okay. Right. But before that?
Well, there is like a young girl who's the protagonist of the BFG.
Oh, okay. All right. Never mind. Every time I think of a Spielberg film, I always think of male-dominated movies.
Well, sure, yeah. Like the biggest movies that he's got, obviously Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List.
But I'm glad that war movies like that don't have a female component in it, because more often than not, they serve as the love interest. It's kind of like Hacksaw Ridge. I thought the love story was very unnecessary. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure he's done other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Ellie Sattler from Jurassic Park is, you know, she's not really a love interest. It's kind of clear that, like...
No, but she's not the lead either.
No, true.
She like disappears for half the movie.
Yeah. What about, who's the female lead in Close Encounters, the mom of the little boy? I always forget who plays her. Anyway, but yeah, I think, like, broadly speaking, you're probably right. Like, most of his...
Oh, The Color Purple. There's one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so never mind.
Yeah, but broadly speaking, like, maybe, like, I don't know, 60% of his leads are probably men, or maybe 70%.
Yeah, which isn't, like, outside the norm, because, you know, he's a director who's...
No, I mean, Hollywood is Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood is Hollywood, and he's been around since, like, what, the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's more of a new movement, so I hope it gains a lot of steam.
Oh, and we were we were joking about this before, but I guess we can't ignore the fact that they're remaking Terminator.
Are they remaking Terminator, or are they just making another sequel?
Well, here's the thing, they're doing both.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Is it like a reboot sequel?
Yes. Very much so.
Oh my god.
So essentially, and like, you know, people are piecing this together through stuff that Arnie has said, and I think something that one of the producers said, but Arnie has confirmed that he's coming back. He's going to be playing the T-800 again. And then I think the producer confirmed that it's going to ignore all of the sequels after T2.
James Cameron needs to go away.
Well, and he's in as an executive producer, which is a little bit of a difference from before, because he wasn't involved after T2. But I mean, I really thought after Terminator Genesis, I really thought that I'm not the first person to make that joke, incidentally, but I really thought after that one, like, the series was gonna go away for at least a significant amount of time. Like, it probably would never be 100% dead. I thought there was going to be a longer break, and maybe we wouldn't get Schwarzenegger back in the whatever version they did next. But yeah, to see it kind of jump back to life after only a couple of years is a little bit depressing, especially, you know, I mean, the last thing the Terminator franchise needs, especially after the very, like, specific way that Terminator 5, Terminator Genesis, stomped all over the things that made T2 great. The last thing this series needs is a movie that tries to retcon the continuity all over again. It takes a lot of focus to even make sense of where we are after 5 films, let alone a 6th one that's kind of choosing its own place in the chronology. But the one bright light about this whole thing is the fact that they've hired Mackenzie Davis to be a main character.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And she's somebody that, for people who don't immediately know the name, she's one of the stars of AMC's *Halt and Catch Fire*, which I'm a huge fan of, a TV show about early computer revolution.
Why is she playing so many computer dorks?
I don't know. Maybe she's been typecast a little bit. She was in that. I loved her in that. She did 5 seasons as that character. They just recently got their series finale, I think late last year. And of course, she was in a small role in Blade Runner 2049 and another supporting role in The Martian as well.
Yes.
She's going to be playing more of a lead in this one, apparently. So we still don't know what her type of a character she's playing. I mean, if there was somebody who could make me more interested in this sequel, it might be her.
Big fan, huh?
Yeah, you could say that. I'm not going to go as far as to add her to my list of like sister wives like you do with some actresses, but
Sister wives? You mean just flat out wives?
well, wouldn't they be sister wives if they were all married to you at once?
Depends on the day of the week, I guess.
The Extra Buttery Podcast, now endorsing Mormonism.
Or polygamy, or whatever the hell they call it. Why are we even talking about this?
You have to consider all of the implications to your comedy.
Well, in my fantasy world, there's no such stupid rules, so there you go.
Yeah. Any other news that's kind of caught your attention recently?
Not really, but I am waiting for the movies, like the blockbuster movie season to really kick off.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, Infinity War will kind of be the official that. Or no, it's probably going to be with like Ready Player One. I guess that's probably big enough. Oh, there is something that just caught my attention earlier today, and that's Alex Garland from Annihilation and Ex Machina fame. He's actually developing a new show for FX called Devs. And it's going to be a sort of tech thriller, which of course we know he's pretty adept at, centering on a female employee of a major tech company in San Francisco who begins an investigation into some sort of clandestine department run by her company, which may be responsible for her boyfriend's disappearance.
Oh.
So I think it was just kind of teased today, and I don't know when it's going to be coming out. It wouldn't surprise me if FX is planning it for their streaming solution. I mean, anything from Alex Garland at this point, I will eat up gladly. Annihilation was great, and we were talking about it in the last episode, because neither of us had seen it yet, but I think we both kind of came out heavily in favor of it.
Yes. Is it the best movie so far in 2018?
Yeah, I would. I think I would add it to the list for sure. Top 3, I think.
Yeah, what other movies would be up there?
Of like new releases?
Yeah, of movies in 2018.
Yeah, actually, I think, it would. There haven't been any like major releases for me other than like Black Panther, but like we got in last episode, we kind of talked about how, that's
Annihilation's better.
Yeah, Annihilation is better film in terms of like as a film. So
yes, as a film, yes.
I mean, I'm totally in favor of Alex Garland getting all the work possible, and it'd be cool to see what he does with the TV format too, because this is being pitched as like a limited series with like a handful of episodes versus like an ongoing thing. Have you ever seen the movie that he wrote but not directed, Never Let Me Go? It was with Andrew Garfield before he was Spider-Man, and Carey Mulligan.
Yeah, it's based on the book by Ishiguro.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And it's, I tried reading the book, but I never got through it because it's just not my kind of book. But it's about like, isn't it about like cloning people and like harvesting organs and stuff? Yeah.
It's only revealed. I guess I can't speak for the book because I don't know how the author kind of revealed that information. But the way Garland wrote the script for the movie adaptation, it teases out that information very gradually. And when you finally, I think it's like the final 10 minutes, essentially, the movie really hits you with like the implications of what this cloning for organ donation stuff really means for the characters.
Yeah, it's kind of like the book. The book does the same kind of deal as well.
Yeah, and like I still kind of get chills thinking about some of the final sequences from the movie, because there's like, I think there's this one shot where Keira Knightley's in the movie too, as one of the clones that's been raised just for the purposes of organ donation. And there's this shot, like I think it's a dolly shot. It's moving back from the hospital bed or the operating table where her character is laid out, and they're like essentially just removing the organs from her. And it was like a creepy as hell shot.
Really?
It still kind of haunts me a little bit.
He's really good at doing that, eh?
Yeah. And like at the time, I didn't really register his name because he was, he's the writer on it, not the director. That, I guess that's the auteur theory, biting me in the ass a little bit. But no, like coming out of that, doing Ex Machina, making a name for himself, and now where he's going with this new show, I'm super excited.
Okay.
I think that about does it for this episode.
Yes.
we came in on time this time. Head on over to kinetoscope.ca, as usual, where we're always posting things. We've got a new review of Annihilation up on the site that Jason posted. And
I'll have A Wrinkle in Time up soon, I promise.
yeah, so we'll get that up for you as well. Probably be doing some coverage of Tomb Raider potentially, and the new Wes Anderson film, which is also on its way in the next couple of weeks.
Isle of
Dogs, yeah. So keep your eyes out for that. But until next time, my name is Robert Snow in Toronto.
And my name is Jason Chen in Vancouver. And we will talk to you next time.